Hello again, everyone. I am back. Sorry, it's wonderful when the internet, your primary and backup both drop out at the same time. So just thought my internet acted up as well. Just thought China hit us with an EMP. Hey, Davey. Hey, Connor. Hey, Sterling. Hey, John. Is the sound better now? Let me know if the sound
Yeah.
is better. All right. Let me just bring on Bob. Let me bring on Bob. Let me just recap tomorrow, just for the point of consensus. Still slight back into negative gamma territory. The 25 basis point dropping, 50 basis point coming up. So it looks like they're starting to take the Fed a little more seriously. Some mega cap, a little pullback there. Banks pulling back. Tesla's still up. Tomorrow, pay attention. ISM non-manufacturing PMI at 9, and S&P composite PMI and services PMI at 845. There's the quick recap. All right, Bob. So, what are your thoughts with everything going on?
Um, I think, thinking about what we said last week was that the Fed can't be happy seeing the way that assets are behaving after they've basically said focus is hiking rates. So, while, this doesn't necessarily mean there's a massive downtrend coming, the Fed speakers are saying exactly what we said they were going to be saying. And, the market's taken a little bit of a down cue from it, but I have to think a little bit of this 2 day down move that you've got on the chart right there, which, sorry, I don't see Coco here. I wanted to ask if he bought at my target.
Coco was in
Well, I guess,
before. Says sounds dropping out again.
yeah. Coco, did you buy up there at the high, which was my target? I was
I'm
just
on a
checking.
yeah. I should upgrade my internet plan. I'm on a 1 terabyte plan, by the way. Whatever it's absurdly
Yeah, I mean,
fast,
look,
but
people got to understand the same technology that allows us to talk to everybody from two different locations in the country, all over the world, sometimes struggles a bit. Not that big a deal. Um, but anyway, yeah, I don't think this is the actual trigger for the next leg of the downturn, if I'm even right about the next leg of the downturn. But I think the Fed is out there doing exactly what we said they were going to do. They're out there going, you guys need to take us seriously. And there's a lot of major shops that think the downside is coming when you just lay it all out. It doesn't mean they're right either. Um, but really, as you look, the next major thing to me is the OPEC meeting Wednesday. Um, because if you look at the OPEC meeting on Wednesday, a lot of analysts think that OPEC's going to be very open to letting some production flow, basically to try and somehow ease the energy crisis that's about to get worse in the EU. But OPEC doesn't really have that much to do with it, right? Not with the coming great freeze that could happen in Germany and other parts of Europe. But OPEC, it would be really bad optics for OPEC if they either didn't accelerate the removal of production cuts or if they just said, no, 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 everything's balanced. Again, crude oil's not cheap right now at 90, it was 94 something a barrel today. That's not low price crude oil. It's just not as high as it would. As I just read the Kathy Wood comment, not as high as it was. Um, it's definitely still high. It's certainly not at that $40, $50 level that shale producers like to see it. So overall, I don't take too much of today. I think a little bit of today's sell-off was also Nancy Pelosi. So
Coco says your 4150 target didn't hit yet.
I'm just wondering if you bought us. Pretty close, Coke. If you like them at 4150, you gotta love them right here,
Hey, Lauren, again,
don't you?
sorry. If there's
Things
internet
go up every
challenges,
day. You should be buying every day.
so wonder where TomTom's stock is. The market only goes up. I ran into and talked to multiple people today. It was like I was being stalked by TomTom. Literally, literally. I when I started off the other thing, I'm an outdated boomer, even though I'm not a boomer, who doesn't
Whatever.
understand that we should be
Tom Tom,
trading we should be trading, Bob. Two people hit me up with this today. Oh, great.
What's that?
This wonderful stock.
Oh God, whatever. I'm sure Tom bought that. Of course he did.
It went up to at one point 300. It's essentially a Chinese shell company
Mm-hmm.
that has gone from, 20 bucks to, I think the high today was 25.55.
Mm-hmm.
It was trading at one point over $300 billion market cap, and it's literally a shell company out of
Yeah.
out of Asia. I don't
Yeah.
even know how some of these things get listed and why this stuff isn't shut down. But
Mm-hmm.
I am the outdated boomer because I did not quintuple my money in 2 days trading HKD. Uh, so
I'm positive Tom just had a ton of that stock in his real account.
so so I am learning. I've learned a lot today. I've
Mm-hmm.
actually learned. I got told that should be back to trading meme stocks. Oh, AMC, which is going to release earnings, is going to beat handedly because they own a gold mine. I was told, which we know they own a gold mine, but now they're going to beat because of the gold mine. I learned that this was a breakthrough to somebody else I talked to that's a big meme stock rotating back into meme stocks again, which I know we're nowhere near the bottom because you take your money, your short term quick gains in meme stocks. Tesla is going to split again coming up very shortly, and then post split rally to 2000 before the end of the year. Post split. So, and that's the next way to make all your any money you've lost. Oh, and the Fed is out of the way now because the whole thing they are going to pivot. I've learned this too, and the Fed was only helping the shorts for the last few months, and now they're out of the way, so it's back to bullish mode. That's what I learned today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I learned from some of the meme people that HKD or whatever it was, they only take away the buy buttons from retail. And since there wasn't a lot of retail in HKD, they allowed that one to go up.
uh, so yeah, this.
Apparently, according to the AMC people that I know, they all said that all the hedge funds own that. That's why it was allowed to go up.
Hey, Coco. I think we are following the trend. The short-term trend is up. The long-term trend is down. Uh, there were some buy patterns. It's now I'm watching for short term tops, but we don't have another medium term top in place yet. I hate that when people say, it's again mixing time frames. You
Yeah.
can be long term, you can get the rip your face off rallies within a long term bear market. I don't understand why, if you're long term bearish because of signals and because of valuations, that you can't be short term bullish and vice versa. I still don't get this. Oh,
Just the difference between a short order cook and a chef, Mike. That's all. Don't worry about it.
yeah, I haven't explained
I
how. Bob, are you an expert yet on short ladder attacks on retail investors?
No.
I mean, I just can't take it. I just literally can't take it. This is getting to the point of absurdity when I get lectured by the college kid down the street about meme stocks and that, you can make more money trading meme stocks than getting a summer job. It's
Yeah, sure.
literally,
Yeah.
that's the point we're back to. We're literally back to that point. So,
Look, I've gotten to the point where like 85, 90% of the people in here are, all pretty cool and they all actually want to be serious about active trading and transitioning their active trading into investing and I want to help those people. But like literally when somebody says to me, "Hey, I bought this and it doubled." Oh, good for you. Great. Mike, you and I went through this in 99, 2000. And I remember telling you the stories about it. There were guys that couldn't spell internet that were making 40, 50, 60% a day. I saw one of them the other day. He's the manager of the paint department at Lowe's. Now, there's nothing wrong with being the manager of a paint department at Lowe's. Nothing wrong with it at all. But he told me the horror story of continuing to trade that way. He made 8 figures, and then he just kept trading that way as we went down 78% in the Nasdaq. And now he runs the paint department at Lowe's. So
making 8 figures. They pay well, I heard.
No, he's making 8 quarts of paint a day.
8 quarts of paint. So, yeah, again, just got to play the levels. Any chance you guys could do a video about the important fundamentals that revolve around oil, such as report, seasonality, etc.? I'm picking up the technicals, but knowing when to employ them is important. Videos like that about the different markets would be great.
Sure, I can do an oil one. I would caution you to be careful about trading oil's fundamentals, because the most important thing that's released for WTI crude oil is released every single week. And that adds to the crude oil volatility. So if what you're going to try and do is weave the fundamentals into a technical perspective, I have no problem with that. Just make sure you're trading micro crude and not like USO or crude oil futures or anything like that. You can get a lot of bang for your buck with micro crude. And by the way, don't trade. So the problem with a lot of people now is like, so if you're trading a standard size crude oil contract, you're trading 1,000 barrels of crude oil, right? So basically at $95, that's $95,000 of exposure, right? Even though they don't demand that in margin. And the mini crude's 500 barrels and the micro crude is 10 barrels. So the good thing about that is with the micro crude, you can widen your time frames. Widen your entries and your stops and your targets and survive a lot of that volatility. Mike, can you put up a crude oil chart real quick?
Right here.
If you look yesterday, crude oil yesterday was down 4.8%. Okay, so I'm going off of memory, but I believe the high was somewhere above 96 or 97, and the low was down below 92. Am I close to right on that, Mike?
The high was 98.65. The low was 92.42.
All right, so that's a $6,000 trading range if you're trading the standard. But if you're trading the micro, it's a $600 trading range, which means you don't have to blow your life up to trade crude oil. Now, Coco says crude oil is hard to trade, but that's because Coco doesn't pay attention to price action, and he doesn't like things that don't just go up. So if you look how well the rotation zone works in crude oil, this is not an isolated example, okay? Crude oil has a tendency to go sideways until there's a disruption to supply or demand in the medium term. So in other words, people like to look at I guess I'm doing the video now, and I'll go into it a lot more, but people like to look at whether it was a build or a draw versus expectations, but that isn't really what affects crude oil in the medium term. It's what affects crude oil in the short term. But what affects in the medium term is the overall supply and demand dynamics, the trajectory of OPEC, the rise and or fall of U.S. production, hurricane season, and refinery utilization. So those things put together actually work really well with the price action. So, I'm showing the rotation zone here just visually, and there's about 5 rotations down, and then it starts to flatten out. And that's pretty much, if you watch Mike's rotation zone videos, it's pretty much what he says they do, right? So, and you could see the same thing on the way up. So a lot of Mike's technical price action works really well in crude oil, really well. But when it was just the standard contract, you had to skip 9 out of 10 trades. Hell, you had to skip 19 out of 20 trades. But now that there's the micro, you can actually do it.
Question is,
Yeah, I'm really.
what's cooking behind Bob?
What's up?
It sounds like kitchen noises going on. What's cooking behind Bob?
Yeah, my mom's visiting. She's cooking.
What are we having?
Well, you're not having anything, but we're having chicken cutlets, vegetable risotto, and a tomato and onion salad.
Ah, Bob, are you bullish long term on crude, assuming the weekly top doesn't trigger?
Long term, I believe crude oil will go back higher. Yes. Um, I wouldn't say I'm bullish because I don't have a position. But long term, I believe crude will turn back up. And it may actually survive going slightly lower to sideways until maybe middle of winter. A lot depends on the midterms, quite frankly, and the trajectory of the executive branch. So, but yes, I think we'll go back up long term.
Legion says great stuff. Thanks. Coco, you should know this by now. Bob, are you Italian?
I'm gonna spit out my cherries.
Is that what
No,
you're
I'm
eating?
Swedish. Yeah,
Oh, you like the Swedish Ferraris?
it's cherry season. This is my favorite fruit. Yeah, I'm 100% Italian. I am the first, well, actually the second person born here in the U.S. in my family. My older brother's first.
Bob, do you think that China will go as far as kicking out Apple or Tesla because of Pelosi?
Mm-mm. No. So I just invade Taiwan sooner than they were otherwise going to. They promised a military response. That military response right now consists of live drills, live fire drills on the Taiwan side of their coast. That's something they haven't done in a while, and that's kind of a sign. But I suspect they'll be preparing to basically pull a Hong Kong on Taiwan a lot sooner than they were going to. I think that's the military response that was going to be. What do you need, Ma? It's up on the cabinet there. I got to give my mom some flour. I'll be right back.
All right. Bob's got to get flour for Mom. Mom's visiting Bob in Florida. Real quick, let's just take a look while he's looking at that. Little pullback today. Some very choppy price action today. Today was a tough day to trade. So you had that little double triggering. Then you got the Pelosi didn't blow up trade. And then you got the reversal. This is with this. It's a horrible sloppy multi-top pattern. I'm going to be watching this a little breakdown area, but really the trade is into the clear path. The trade is into the clear path. I'll just be using these intermediate targets once it gets below about 40.72 as stop reduction targets. But it's still favoring that return. If it does break down, the little return till 4018. Bob's back. I'll bring him back on in a second. But that's the only thing I'm watching for. Other than that, we'll get to some other price action once we're done with Bob. Bob, you're back. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So your thing is with Taiwan, they're going to invade sooner rather than later, but there's not going to be any errant live fire mishaps over the next couple days, are there?
Right.
So no other escalation besides banging on their chest and then Pelosi leaves.
Yeah, no, I think I hesitate to call it an invasion because the U.S. officially, to my knowledge, has a one China policy. They consider Taiwan to be somewhat like Hong Kong was, where it's a part of China, but it has its own government. China says they don't have their own government. So that's kind of where it lies. And so I think they were leading to some sort of conflict where China goes in and basically says, you're part of China. What are you going to do about it? So I suspect that'll actually happen very soon now. Probably shortly after Pelosi leaves.
Well, don't they have to really ramp up? I mean, some more military. They don't just staging. I mean, Taiwan's
I
got.
mean, I don't. They've been staging a lot of warships and things in the South China Sea for a long time. I don't know how much more they have to do to actually land in Taiwan and say, "Yeah, remember how we said this is ours? Well, it's ours." But I don't know that. I would never claim to be a military strategist. So
Uh, Now, on a different note, Sterling asks, "Can you explain the forward curve on commodities?" Mike said to ask you because you explain things way better than me.
so the forward curve with commodity. Let's just take the future side of things. There's a forward curve with the cash market as well, but let's just look at the future side. The major futures contracts in commodities expire every 3 months. And now they have one for every single month. But let's say that the price of the August contract is here. Price September contract is here. October is here. November is here, and so on. They kind of go up. And the reason they go up, well, let me rephrase that. Contango is when the longer dated contracts are higher priced than the shorter dated contracts. Okay. Backwardation is the opposite of that. Okay. So when the shorter dated contracts are cheaper than the longer dated contracts. Now, in theory, backwardation in the case of crude oil should be the way that the curve always is. But it kind of gives you an idea of supply and demand. So if somebody has crude oil now and somebody else wants to buy it, that's the price. When somebody says, well, I got this crude oil now, but I'm also going to have this other crude oil a month. You want to buy this too? Well, give me a little bit of a discount because I have to store it. So the longer months of the curve account for storing the commodities theoretically. Okay? I'm hoping this makes sense. It's much easier to understand than it is to explain. So when you see the two prices converge, one of the things you want to watch is, did they converge from the longer dated being more expensive and the shorter dated being cheaper, or the other way around? And that kind of gives you a little bit of a hint to short-term demand. But essentially, like I want to pull up the crude oil curve right now, because that's the easiest one to understand.
I think I can show it here. If
Yeah, you can just put up like the CME quotes.
Well, here you can see the forward curve here above your head, Bob. You see it here?
Oh,
There's the
okay.
forward curve.
So, yeah. So that's theoretically the wrong shape for crude oil because again, the other ones are priced for storage. It should be the other way. Right now, the further out contracts are telling you crude oil is going to be cheaper in the future. Okay, that's what it's telling you. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the actual reality of it. But it's telling you that right now, people are just saying, send me all your crude oil now because I can use it. Right? So if somebody says, I want all your September crude oil, well, that's $93.75 a barrel. Well, how much for your October? Well, now I don't have to store it. So how about $92.52? Well, how much for your November? Well, hell, that's 2 months of storage I save. How about $91.57? So it's priced as if the people don't have to store it, right? Whereas the normal shape of the curve would be the opposite of what you're seeing on Mike's screen, because if people are going to sell crude oil that they've got in January, for example, they have to store it. So January's price right now is $89.57. If crude oil were abundant, somebody said, how much for your January? It'd be like, well, $100 because I got to pay to store it for 4 or 5 months before I'm shipping to you, and you have to compensate me for that. Does that make sense? So the curve right now is in Contango. The natural state of the curve is backwardation.
I was just going to ask you to define contango versus backwardation, which you just did.
Contango is when the front months are priced higher than the back months. Backwardation is the opposite.
So, and backwardation is normal. Contango is when you get situations like this. I'm trying to think. See, can I scroll this up? It won't let me scroll it up. And I don't want to move Bob, but the forward curve in gold. Why won't it
Yeah.
let me? Hold on. Let me see if I expand this. Now, there we go. So there. Can you see that, Bob?
I can.
So that's gold.
Yeah. So the forward curve in gold should look the opposite of the yield curve. Are you able to put up a visual of the yield curve? Well, it doesn't matter. We know it's inverted.
So there's
If
gold.
you overlaid the yield curve over that, it would be an X, right? The forward gold curve versus the yield curve almost always is the letter X, because basically gold gains value as the dollar loses value, all else equal. So when you look at the two and you see that the 10-year, and where were we at today?
Oh,
I know that the twos tens curve went to about negative 34 at one point. I don't know where it finished.
the tens twos
Yeah.
finished. Roughly about negative 31 and a half.
All right. So that means the yield on the 2-year is higher than the yield on the 10-year, right? So if you were to plot that, it would be shaped like that, right? If you were to plot the twos and the tens, it would look like that. And gold looks like this. That's because as the yields drop, the value of gold goes up, and vice versa.
Yep. And then if we look at some other things, just to continue your things like a wheat, if you look at the forward curve in wheat.
Yeah, again, storage, right? So there's a shortage now. So people are buying wheat now and they're saying, you're not going to have to store it. Just send it to me. As soon as you have it, send it. So since they don't have to pay storage prices, they get a cheaper price on it. They're able to sell it at a cheaper price because they don't have to pay to store it. That's what it is with commodities. Commodities are all about storage. Gold's curve very rarely looks like that because gold almost always has storage built into it.
Yeah, and there's the forward curve for corn, slight still demand, and then the big drop off coming in the future.
Yeah.
And beans. And beans doesn't have any. I mean, look at the. Can you see the beans one? I mean,
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
the beans is fully normal.
Yeah.
So there's the difference. That was a very good question by Sterling.
Robinhood is laying off 23% of their staff. Didn't somebody put that in here? I think somebody
Yeah,
put that in here.
Robinhood's laying off a bunch of people.
23% of their staff.
And Michael Saylor steps down as MicroStrategy CEO.
Yeah. So I read that the board replaced him and made him chairman emeritus, which is what they usually do when they're getting rid of you. So the talk on MicroStrategies was they invested about $4 million in Bitcoin, and they've suffered about $3 million worth of losses.
4 million.
I'm sorry, billion.
Yeah, I was going to say they didn't do 4 million.
No, 4 billion is what they've invested in Bitcoin, and so far they've accumulated about 3 billion in losses. But the funny thing about it is, Saylor's job now supposedly is going to be to accumulate Bitcoin.
Huh?
They said his main job as chairman is going to be to acquire Bitcoin.
His main job as chairman.
That's what it says. Yeah, is going to be to acquire Bitcoin.
There's not going to be. We're asked if there's the. I don't know if this is going to show the VIX. We don't have a VIX forward curve.
Yeah, I never look at that, so because the VIX can change overnight. But here's the statement, Michael Saylor's statement. I believe the splitting of the roles of chairman and CEO will enable us to better pursue our two corporate strategies of acquiring and holding Bitcoin and growing our enterprise analytics software business. So Taylor's not going to be running the enterprise analytics software business anymore. He's just going to be acquiring and holding Bitcoin.
Yep. So Rich chimed in, Starbucks, AMD, and PayPal beat earnings. Well, what was interesting, this was fascinating because in this big bubble, this is still one side. You can see it on the weekly. You can see it nicer on the weekly, but on this big double, it triggered right going into a close. And then post-market is above the stop reduction. That was sort of funny. It triggered going right into the close. AMD, which hit its, come on. Where was that? I thought there we go. Not AMD. What am I thinking of? I forgot what I'm thinking of. There was another one that hit its double target today. I'll have to think of that in a bit. What are any other thoughts, Bob, before we wrap it up? Because I'm having so many gosh darn internet problems.
No, I'm good. I just want to make sure I answered all the questions. I think I did.
How are your cherries, by the way?
They're really good. They're in season for such a short time that I eat too many of them, and they got a lot of fiber. So take that to mean what you want.
Any other questions for Bob before we bid Bob adieu?
I like Gio's comment.
What was
MicroStrategy has a dual mandate.
Let's see. It's to pump Bitcoin so they can get some of those losses back. Oh boy, we got.
Fair enough, strategy. Fair enough.
All right, not seeing anything else for you, Bob. So you'll be back on Thursday.
I will be back on Thursday.
Okay.
All right, kids. Talk to you guys later.
Talk to Bob on Thursday. Thank you. Again, sorry for technical issues going into this. Some things, even with double internet, are out of my control. So I already went over what I'm keying off of now. Again, I need a close at least on a 4-hour basis below 480.50. At least the rotation zone. Again, I talked about this other double today being in the lower probability because it was against the 4-hour and the daily. At least the daily, it could have hit most of the targets. The 4-hour, though, catching on it, rotating up once more before making this horrible sloppy topping pattern. So those are the levels I'm utilizing into the clear path. It's more so a clear path trade than it is a double. But you have these two lows lining up really nicely. 40.81, 48.50. So if we get a key close below that, then that's a very short-term trade to take it back into the daily rotation zone and actually break back to a very key level right there. So that's just a short term with cycles at the top and the weekly at the top. Nasdaq, again, there was a double on the Nasdaq, so nothing to do there, but that same level holding that we had identified today. I mean, if some people are going to trade this, here's the targets for this. This is very interesting because that flat area. I don't like to trade these, but I will utilize the targets because it's a breakdown below this key level, the same one that's been there, 40. This 12.827 area. So I just use these for stop reductions, 12.673, 12.607. And I mainly focus on that first two targets. Unless we have momentum, then it's 12.532. To the upside, nothing really changes from what I talked about this morning on either market. I'll take a look after the overnight price action. The Dow, by the way, did trigger. This did not take it out of the trade. And first, it hit the first target before this, but then first and second targets are virtually hit. So the next target down on the Dow is 32,266. To the upside, your key resistance is 32,600, and then I'm back to 32,700. Just happens to be that way. Nothing with the round numbers other than those are the key levels. We have the this disaster of a mess that is not, it's more the breakdown play. The other one didn't trigger, but this, oh, come on. Is everybody still there? Guess not.